In this video, I'm going to talk about another technique for finding out which quadrant a radian measure is in. You basically have to come up with a technique. If this method makes sense to you, then use it. If some other method makes sense to you that I've discussed in another video, practice it and use it. The only way you can get better at it is to try it, see if it resonates with you. If that doesn't resonate with you, maybe look for something else. Or try to create one yourself. I'm going to show a couple of techniques. This one's another one for finding out which quadrant a radian measure is in. And if it works for you, if it makes sense to you, then use it. If not, try to look at one of the other techniques and see if it makes sense to you also. Some are fast, some will take you a little bit longer. But either way, if you get better at it, it doesn't take as much time to do it. So I'm going to look at the pi's over 4, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 6 angles. And let's talk about the technique and see how it works. Pi over 4. If you're pi over 4, that means you've broken up half of a circle, pi, into 4 chunks. 1, 2, 3, 4 chunks. So, and then break up the whole circle into 8 chunks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breaks it up into 8 pieces. So if you start at 0, 1 pi over 4 is here, 2 pi's over 4 is there, 3, 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, and these fractions could reduce, and that's what they usually do, but think of it as in terms of pi over 4. This is 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4 is one complete revolution. Okay? So if I was trying to find out what 5 pi over 4 is, I would start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pi over 4 is in the third quadrant. If I was doing 11 pi over 4, 11 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4 is one complete revolution. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 pi over 4 is exactly the same as 3 pi over 4, and that's in the second quadrant. Negative 7 pi over 4. Negative 7 means you're going this way around the circle. So negative 7 would be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. It's exactly the same as pi over 4. So it's in quadrant 1. The coterminal angle for this would be pi over 4. So the angle is in quadrant 1. Pi is over 3. Pi over 3 breaks the circle into thirds, or actually sixths. But they break the half circle into 3 pieces. Pi over 3, pi is 1, divided by 3 is in 3 chunks. So I can think of this as 0 pi over 3, 1 pi over 3, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, and 1 revolution is 6 pi over 3. So 6 pi over 3 would be 1 revolution. Negative 6 pi over 3 would be 1 revolution this way. So if I'm looking for 4 pi over 3, start with here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's in quadrant 3. 17 pi's over 3, again I'm thinking 6 pi over 3 is 1 revolution. So 6 pi over 3 is 1 revolution. 12 pi over 3 would be 2 revolutions. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So I put 17 pi over 3 in quadrant 4. 11 pi is over 3. So again, that would be going this way. So this is negative 6 pi, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11. So that puts me in the first quadrant. So negative 11 pi over 3 is exactly the same as pi over 3. I went around this way 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Puts me there. Similarly with pi's over 3, pi over 6 breaks a half circle into 6 chunks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And breaks the whole circle into 12 pieces. So if I was looking for 7 pi's over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pi over 6 is in quadrant 3. 12 pi's over 6 is 1 revolution. So if I was looking for 17 pi over 6, 17 pi over 6, 1 revolution is 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it's exactly the same as 5 pi over 6, which is in quadrant 2. If I was doing negative 13 pi over 6, negative 13 pi over 6, 1 revolution would be 12 pi over 6. 1 more, that is the same coterminal angle as 11 pi over 6, So negative 13 pi over 6 would be, that's 12 pi over 6, one more, 11 pi over 6. So that's in quadrant 4. So I hope this helps to kind of help figure out which quadrant any angle is in, especially if it's in radians. You'll find radians very easily to use because the pi over 6 tells you how many times a half circle is chunked up or is broken up. Pi over 3 tells you it's broken up 3 times. Pi over 4 tells you it's broken up 4 times. So then from there you can figure out which quadrant something was in. You could draw a quick sketch on a piece of paper and just draw right around the circle, and that might help out try to figure out which quadrant radians you're in.